It was a frigid morning when we climbed this mountain near Albany, New York.
We made it!
To meet this woman, Diane Caruso Rustin.
We're pretty tough up here.
Diane says she had to be tough to work more than a decade inside a large postal processing plant where they sort mail 24 hours a day.
The culture of the post office is, it's an old boys club.
Good at getting along with the guys working alongside her, Diane says she thought she was going to get a promotion when she walked into one of her manager's offices.
Next thing I know, he pushes me up against the wall. And he pushes down my left side of my pants, which, you know, those stretchy pants. He licked my leg. I was like, you know, and I got startled, and then took his thing out, and he told me to kiss it.
The married mother of two says she pushed her way out of the room and quickly wrote down everything that happened before filing a formal complaint through her union. That, she says, is when the retaliation began.
One of the supervisors grabbed me and told me, you better keep your mouth shut if you know it's good for you.
Diane says the retaliation grew worse as a team of investigators tried to get her to sign an incorrect statement of facts. She refused. And that, not the assault, is what finally broke her.
It's the cover-up, the intimidation that they do to you.
The News 4i team has uncovered a list of reported sexual assaults against postal employees from across the country, never before released to the public, including more than a dozen here in our area within just the last few years. Records we obtained show the assaults range from men groping and flashing mail carriers on their routes to more serious attacks like the violent rape of a postal clerk in Silver Spring. But then we saw this. When we added it all up, we realized 1 out of every 5 sexual assaults against postal employees were committed by other postal employees.
To ask somebody to get down on their knees in the middle of the aisle, in the middle of a workroom floor, to give you oral sex, I think is sexual. If that's not sexual harassment, what is?
Noelle Whalen says her managers repeatedly ignored multiple complaints she made about being harassed, stalked, and finally sexually assaulted by one of her supervisors inside this processing plant in Connecticut.
This is a person that I had asked numerous times not to touch me, not to go near me, not to speak inappropriately to me, and he then attacks me.
Noelle kept all of her paperwork, but when we asked the post office for its records on the investigation of her attack, we received hundreds of blank and redacted pages. But the post office assured us it has a zero-tolerance policy for sexual assault.
When the federal government is an employer and then it doesn't follow its own rules, that makes this sense of betrayal or, wrongness somehow worse.
Sexual violence experts like Maya Ragu say this list could be much longer because sex assault is one of the most underreported crimes. And as we discovered, Noelle and Diane's cases were investigated by their Human Resources Department, meaning their cases were never reported to the Postal Service's internal police force and never made it to our list.
If it's unwanted, then in most places that's probably some sort of battery, let's say, which is a crime.
To get answers, we repeatedly asked to interview Postmaster General Patrick Donahoe. Until in August, we were told by a spokeswoman if we tried to approach him, we could be investigated and arrested for threatening a postal employee. Which is how we ended up at this news conference at the Postal Museum 2 weeks ago, as the Postmaster General released a new holiday stamp. We counted at least 11 different people in his team scrambling to keep us from interviewing their boss, pleading with us not to approach him.
Mr. Donahoe, I'm Tisha Thompson with the News 4i team. Did you know that we've been trying to get a comment from you?
No.
Donahoe told us the Postal Service uses an extensive process to investigate violence against its employees.
There is nothing ever that is left uninvestigated. We prosecute people to the full extent of the law.
Some of your employees have told me that after they were sexually assaulted, they were retaliated against when they made a complaint.
The Postal Service has got a number of avenues for employees to air issues, whether it's the OIG hotline, the grievance process, EEOC. We have watched these carefully over the years. We've taken this very seriously and acted on it.
I'm sure as the boss, it also concerns you that your employees are saying that. What do you want to tell them?
Our employees are safe. We provide a safe environment. We provide an environment where if there is a problem, we respond to it.
Life for Randall Nelson always seems to be teetering on the rim.
Violence, drugs, peer pressure, it's a lot.
He never knew his mother. His father,
I was 5 when he passed.
shuffled from relative to relative. He ran away at 13.
I was running away from a life that I didn't want, an abusive life, you know? I see the basket and the ball. Everyone else, I blank it out. Everyone knew I was going to go somewhere.
But he says he realized late in the game he needed better grades at a better school if he wanted to play at the college level.
I was going to transfer to a whole different school for my senior year, but I wouldn't be eligible to play basketball. So I went to Laurel Prep so I can play and still get my education.
Randall says Laurel Prep Academy told him it could get him the attention of college recruiters while he, at the same time, finished high school. He played plenty of basketball, but his grades?
I didn't complete a course.
The News 4i team has found no one else on the team has either. Multiple sources tell us most of the players have already graduated from high school or go to another high school to get their education. A few, like Randall, were initially enrolled in online courses. But Randall says Laurel Prep never paid the bill.
This is the computer lab.
This is Levitt Brown, Laurel Prep's coach and founder, and Harriet Cox, the school's academic administrator. And these are the computers Randall and the other students were supposed to use for their classes. Are these computers working yet or not so much?
No, they're not. We don't have the internet running over here.
The computer lab is housed in the Laurel Boys and Girls Club, which Brown says he also runs.
This school is free.
Brown showed us receipts detailing how the Boys and Girls Club pays for Laurel Prep's uniforms, travel, and other basketball expenses. But when it comes to classes, they could only produce these emails showing how many credits Randall and another student needed to graduate, making many wonder if Laurel Prep is nothing more than a basketball farm team.
We signed them up for the classes, but it didn't suit them.
Even though her title in her shirt says she's Laurel Prep's academic administrator, Harriet Cox says she isn't responsible for educating the team's players.
It's a college prep program, and all we're doing is basically trying to get kids to qualify, whether it's trying to get their ACTs done, get their SATs done. We haven't had anybody right now to take their ACTs or SATs through us. We've registered several kids to the online program, and they wasn't successful on it because as they was trying to say that I was the educator, I'm not the educator, I'm a registered nurse.
That's when Cox told us she doesn't consider Laurel Prep to even be a school.
And it's not a school, okay? It is not a school.
But that's not what the Maryland State Board of Education says. The I-Team found Laurel Prep Academy is registered as a church-exempt school, meaning it is exempt from state oversight as long as it's connected to a religious organization.
Wow, I fell for it.
Pastor Tony Igbenobas says his church, Power of Liberty Ministries International, was renting space inside the Laurel Boys and Girls Club for its services when Brown asked him if he could use the church's tax ID number.
It said to me that a tax ID would be used for Laurel Prep School, okay, to help kids that are less fortunate who dropped out of middle school or high school to be able to play sport and at the same time get education.
But Pastor Tony says when he discovered the kids weren't actually getting an education, he withdrew his support.
These kids that were here, they're not going to school, they're not doing anything.
That was news to the Maryland State Department of Education, which tells the I-Team it has now launched an investigation into Laurel Prep after we told them what we've uncovered. Without the church's affiliation, Laurel Prep would no longer be exempt from state oversight.
All my life, there's been adults that I've trusted. There's been people that say they will get me places but they've all ended up leaving.
Randall's now working as a security guard, making just enough money to pay for the online classes he's now taking on his own to get his GED.
Some way, somehow, I have to teach kids. This game is not all about just shooting the ball.
To teach them what no one taught him. You have to go to school if you don't want to miss your shot. It's something great. Randy Orff was the father who just seemed to know how to do everything.
Every day was a learning experience with him, even up to how to hook up a trailer. You know, anything that you can think of that you're not taught in school or out of a book. Those kind of things is what I got out of my father.
Brandon Orff says his father was always worried about safety. He was the guy who put out the orange cones on the highway, who kept you safe by setting up those arrow signs. Pulling a trailer was part of his job, a job that required him to drive home every day over the Bay Bridge.
I was watching Oprah Winfrey, and it came on as a news break that there was a terrible accident on the Bay Bridge.
Missy Orff says when she saw the pictures, she knew that red pickup truck, knew what that red tarp meant.
I screamed. I literally screamed, and I jumped out of the chair, and I ran.
Investigators say Randy's truck flipped and flew through the air so violently it smashed into a tractor trailer, these trucks, and this Honda, killing the driver inside. Police say it all began when Randy's truck tried to swerve out of the way of this, a homemade trailer, popped off its hitch and out of control when it slammed into his red truck. But Randy wasn't alone. Their 19-year-old son, Jonathan, was also inside.
He was my baby, and I always called him Jonathan, my Jonathan.
Missy says her son always wanted to be just like his dad, hunting, fishing, volunteering as a firefighter, and had just started working at his dad's company 3 months earlier. They got up together, they worked together, and they died together.
It was a nightmare, and at times it still is. There's still days it seems like it just happened.
The News 4i team found accidents involving trailers are on the rise, up 75% in Maryland in the last 3 years. We found accidents linked with boat, camper, mobile home, and auto trailers. But the vast majority involve utility trailers, like this one, whose driver died after his pickup was flung off this Howard County bridge on I-95 in May. This is the SUV that pulled the trailer that killed Randy and Jonathan. The driver never charged. Maryland did not have any laws to punish him for not properly hooking up his trailer until Missy went to Annapolis to change them. To show you what the law now requires, we went out with the Maryland State Police on a surprise inspection of hundreds of commercial vehicles. They pulled this trailer out of service because the lawnmowers weren't strapped down, and this trailer full of furniture because the driver didn't have the right license to pull something so large.
Push your brake. Release.
First Sergeant Jonathan Griffin says every trailer must have working taillights and the right size ball to connect the trailer to your vehicle.
Most commonly, they'll have a trailer that needs a 2-inch ball, for example, and the vehicle has an 1 7/8 ball. Well, it goes on easy. However, when you hit a bump, the locking device is too big and it'll just pop off.
You must have safety chains to keep the trailer connected, even if it pops off its hitch, and a pin to lock the hitch in place. That was what was missing on the trailer that killed Randy and Jonathan.
Was the safety pin, something that cost $1.79. That's it. That's it.
Missy says the day the governor signed her bill, she came here to tell her husband and her son.
I let him know I did it. I said I put on my big girl pants and I did it. He'd be proud of me. I know he would.